But welcome to
What's your
Church Folk Space
name?
Talking.
What's your name,
My
sir?
name is Dr. Graham Brown. This is my beautiful wife, Frankie Bennett Graham Brown, and we are
Church
happy
gang.
and delight that
Happy.
you are here tonight to join us tonight. And we are going to talk about a
Mm-hmm.
very intriguing topic
I like
that I
intriguing.
myself did not know this word
Me
last year
either.
until my wife kind of expressed it to me.
Until we were victim to it and we were like, I think this applies to us.
Right, isn't that amazing?
So
That is
isn't it
amazing.
amazing how you go through life with all these emotions and all these experiences and then there's a term for it? And you're like, what? So I'm not tripping. That's originally what it was. We were talking about a situation, and I was like, Pedro, I know we're not tripping. I know it's not us. I know we're not crazy. And then all of a sudden, there was a lot of different articles that were popping up on the internet and on the news about our topic that we're going to discuss today. And we're going to break it down because it comes in many different forms. So tonight, we're talking about gaslighting. Gaslighting,
Mm.
right? Now, usually before we jump into the actual meat and potatoes, we like to start off with a quote. And so,
Yes.
Pedro, tell us what the quote is for this evening.
I think this quote here is perfect for the topic tonight
Mm,
because so many of us have been beaten up, not realizing that we've been beaten up. Boom, 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 boom,
been
bang,
rockied
right?
out.
You
Right.
got some spiritual fists hitting you, you know what, which side is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But Maya Angelou said this here, it's so profound. She said, I can be changed by what happens to me,
Mm-hmm.
but I refuse to be reduced by it. I
Mm,
can be changed by what happened to me, but I refuse to allow that situation to reduce me, the person, the individual that God has created me to be.
yeah.
I think what Paul said it this way in Corinthians.
Paul say.
All things are meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
but not all things edify the body.
Mm,
And I will not allow those things to put me under subjection
yeah.
to those things, right?
I'm thinking too. I can go through all these things, but I'm not going to stoop to your level.
Right,
Right. I'm
right.
not going to get down. I can get down with the get down, but that's not happening. I'm going to be the oh, Michelle Obama, we talked about her affectionately in our last segment.
Yes, we do.
When they go low,
We go higher.
we go high.
We go higher for the Lord and for his glory. Amen.
Amen. We church folks, child.
Yeah, we church folks. Church folks. But thank you all for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you.
And we definitely would like to get your interaction,
Yeah, we
input
love
on the
input. We're
topic.
coming to Facebook. We got the
And
folks. Let's
so,
chat.
yeah. So, what I want to do now, we want to talk
Oh,
about the gaslighting. What is that?
wait, right. What is it?
What is it?
I'll tell you what it is. It was, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, it was the number one word, the top word searched of 2022, so much so that it became the word of the year. Was that good?
That was good.
We're in that corner, killing that
I'm trying to cool this
I'm
gas
telling
down.
Someone's turning up your
The
gas.
fire is supposed to go up.
Cola turns it down.
So we're trying to cool it down by the Holy Spirit.
Gaslighting was the number one word, was the word of the year for last year, because and they interpret that because a lot of people inquire about it online, wiki, all types of social media platforms, and it was the top word search.
And,
So-
and it cover a plethora
Oh,
of areas, but it's so broad. So what we're gonna do is that we're just gonna narrow it down.
okay. Well, what's
You know,
on where we're gonna break it up?
Right. We're gonna break it down. So my wife gonna give
I'm
us
gonna get a
another
drink.
short history
Okay.
where that the term began.
Okay.
And you want to say something about that?
No, you got to give the term, and then I'll give the historical background. What's gaslighting?
What is gaslighting? Let me give you a good definition of what it is. It is, let me go right to my notes here.
Go ahead, take it there.
Yeah. It is defined is gaslighting is a form of manipulation where the manipulator attempt to make their victim believe what's happening to them isn't actually happening and their reality is untrue.
Can I add to that?
Yes, you can.
Also, my thought process is it's attempt of one person to sow doubt into the thoughts of the other partner.
Right.
Okay, and create confusion in the victim's mind. As we related to before, when we were asking ourselves about our situations, am I tripping? Are we tripping? We're thinking we can't be because our reality is true, but there's confusion. And so gaslighting falls into that.
Right. It's to change the person's reality into a reality that make it her believe it's not the reality.
Right. USA Today also says it's the act or practice of grossly misleading someone for your own advantage.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about where did that come from?
Where does it come from? Alfred Hitchcock.
It's not a new term.
It's not a new term.
And
right.
you hit the nail on the head. It's not new because our buddy, if you're a cinematic person, Alfred Hitchcock, he's the king of whatever he calls it, mystery, theater, murder mystery.
Suspense, yeah.
He created a movie in 1944 that was loosely based on a play that was originated in 1938 called The Gaslighter. And the movie is about a man who attempts to manipulate his wife psychologically and do things to make her believe that she's crazy. Or she's going insane. And so the term gaslight came from, if we're going back to Alfred Hitchcock days, which are black and whites, they lit the house and they lit hallways and even in the front of the house with the gaslight. And so she would look around trying to search for things and she thought that she was going blind and couldn't see because he would turn down the gas lights. So he would dim the lights on purpose and make her feel like she was losing her mind when he was actually manipulating the environment.
Right.
So it's the process of invalidating someone's feelings and making them go insane. So our delusion, right? So our attempt tonight is what we're going to do. We've given you the definition. What we'd like to do is talk about the different types of gaslighting, right? That's available. And then we're going to give some examples of that and what are some signs. A lot of you guys might not even know if you've been victims of gaslighting. What was that quote that you found earlier about gaslighting? Three and four people.
Right. I tell you guys, this is amazing. This is from the YouGov America, and it said over 3 in 4 U.S. adults don't know what gaslighting is. Now think about it. I was one of them too.
Yeah, probably me. We're 2 out of the 4.
Yeah, we were one of them
sitting here.
And your people use term, you wonder what they're talking about.
Right.
But I found some very interesting statistic that talks about this revelation, this psychological abuse that happened in America that a lot of us unaware of.
Okay. Well, before you get there, we're gonna break that down. What types of gaslighting there is, right?
Right.
And then we're gonna see how can you recognize if you are or were a victim of gaslighting. What are those signs, right? And then we're gonna break it down a little bit further and talk about something that makes sense to us. And the reason why church folks be talking is really even a thing is spiritual gaslighting. Church gaslight. It happens, guys. And are we tripping? Right? Because that's how we thought. So we know it's real. And then we'll give examples, I guess, that we faced. And then we'll wrap it up and just give a focal thought, a final thought on how to really address it and how to heal and move.
And to know the signs that when you are being gaslit.
Know the signs to protect yourself.
Now, there are 15 signs, but my wife and I kind of want it down to 6 of them that we want to emphasize.
Well, let's talk about the types.
No, these are the types.
Oh, you said signs.
There are many signs of gaslighting.
We're going to talk about the signs, or we're going to talk about what the types are? What types of gaslighting are?
Okay, let's go back to, then. I want to talk about
the types first, and then they'll know the signs usually fall into those, right?
These are the types right here.
So there's a couple types. There's relationship gaslighting, right? And that is the really the main area where most people fall victim to gaslighting, and Prater's going to give examples of that. Then we have work gaslighting, things that happen at your job, right? That really challenge your credibility, challenge your intelligence, and really are put you in compromising areas. And then you have organizational gaslighting, which is where we're going to really introduce the spiritual gaslighting from the organizational standpoint. And then there was another one that I just found out about. Medical gaslighting, right? I'm sorry, doctors, and we have families, we have family members that are doctors and whatnot. But I know people that fall into victim to this all the time. And medical gaslighting is really when healthcare individuals, healthcare professionals try to dismiss your symptoms or your illness, and they say that it's all in your head. You know, you can have some type of really acute pain, and I've seen documentaries on this, particularly for African American men, when they go in and they ask for medications or they ask for prescriptions, and they say, "Oh, he's just trying to get drugs," and they dismiss the actual feelings, and these men pass away, or they really have some terminal illnesses that linger. And so medical gaslighting, I mean, and if we think about it, right, it's a lot of different gaslighting.
It's a lot of different.
It's a whole lot of gaslights out there.
But we're going to focus on the organizational of it. It's so broad. It is
so broad.
So broad.
Yep.
And there's so many things for us to really, I mean, so many angles that we can go on with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's talk about the signs, some signs of what signs of gaslighting.
How do you know what to look for?
So what to look for in the verywellmind.com website gave 15 signs, but my wife and I, we kind of narrowed down to 6 of them.
Yeah, 6 of them are maybe the most common.
Most common, right?
Run into.
Now, you doubt your feelings of reality. Now, as my wife gave the Alfred Hitchcock example, right? Number 2, you feel alone and powerless. When somebody puts you in that position, it make you feel powerless. It's kind of interesting. Was watching this movie last night. It's a documentary.
The Deep End.
The Deep End. Now, that was a classical example of gaslighting the gentleman.
About a spiritual healer.
Healer, right? So anyway, we know we got time to go.
Watch it though.
Watch it. It's good on
the
Hulu. Hulu Plus, The Deep End. And we talk about you are disappointed in yourself and who you have become.
And these are signs.
Right.
These are results of what happens if you
find gaslight. Yep. Right. And then number 3, number 4.
Number
1, 2, 3, 4. You worry that you are too sensitive.
Yeah.
That you're too sensitive. How are you becoming too sensitive?
You're getting too soft. You're always too
reacting. That's it, right? Number 5 is that you second guess yourself.
Let's stay here for a second. How many people in jobs, in relationships, in your areas of belief system know what you think is true, right? Know your point, know your work, know your job, but yet and still people try to attack that and make you think that you don't know what you're talking about. Like, didn't you go to school for this? Didn't you get hired to do this particular thing? So why do I feel inadequate? Why am I second guessing myself? So people make you feel like you're crazy.
Feel like you're crazy, right?
Right?
Second guess yourself.
Am I tripping?
And you hear the expression when your instinct, you have this
your gut
feeling.
Yeah.
Your instinct is telling you something is wrong, but the person make you feel make you begin to second guess yourself.
Yeah. Like it's not the environment, it's really you.
It's really you. In essence, it's really the person.
It's really them.
Right. And then finally, number 6, you struggle to make decisions because you distrust yourself. And that's why, and I think this is one of the most critical, actually.
Okay.
When the individual, the perpetrator, can dismantle you distrust yourself, your thoughts.
You gonna shake the table this whole time?
I'm so sorry. I get excited. I'm
taking. He's like,
I know.
He's strangling the table over here.
But when your perpetrator make you begin to distrust yourself, once the enemy can dismantle you, then he psychologically grab you where he wants you to be.
And a lot of reasons for that, and I think we're going to get to that, is to have a dependence on the perpetrator, to have a dependence on your spouse, so they can manipulate you.
And they call it codependency.
So they can, well, not even
no,
talk.
not codependency. Sorry.
You just like that word. It's that psychology in you. But it's to have total dependence on that person,
Right.
and to realize that if I leave this person, if I leave this job, I'm not going to get anything better than this.
Right.
I won't have what I was supposed to have.
Right.
This is as good as it gets.
Right. It's like giving your life on the platter to the person. You said, here you go. Yeah. Everything.
Serving it up.
Serve it up. It's like you lose your own individuality.
Which what happens in our documentary we saw last night.
Oh my God!
It's the framework of a cult.
Framework. I mean,
it's their framework of a cult.
Right.
If you put all your hope, all your trust in me, I am the only way out.
And that's gonna be very critical.
I'm the only way out, or death is the only way out. Right.
So let's talk about now. What are some of the examples?
Well, you talked about some. Let's talk about. Have you ever been a victim of gaslighting? Now that we are aware of what it is, can you go back in your mental time capsule and see what it is? The documentary is called The Deep End on Hulu.
I mean,
have you ever been at work, in a relationship? Have you ever gaslit somebody in a relationship?
Have I ever gaslight somebody in a relationship, in the sense to make the person? I might have indirectly.
You stud.
Yeah, I think sometimes we do it innocently, not realizing that we are actually doing it. You know,
I was going to say that there might be times that you might actually be the perpetrator,
right,
and not even know that you're creating that environment in the relationship.
Right.
But if the other person is vulnerable and weak, they're not going to stand up for themselves and say, point A, point C. Well, talk about, what do you think?
I was in a, before I met my wife, I was in a previous relationship.
What we doing relationship?
And, let me use another example.
Okay.
Yeah, and I went into this relationship, the person, was struggling, and I came in there, I was paying the bill, and I was the breadwinner of that relationship, and I would say to the person, well, you can't do it without me, because I don't want to be paying the bill. You need me, basically. In essence, what I'm saying to the person, you can't live without me. That's what it is. So
that sounds like
guilty of it, if we can be honest.
That sounds like some real Training Day type Denzel Washington stuff.
I'll be shooting
anybody. Like y'all need me. King Kong ain't got nothing on me.
But have you ever
not in a relationship? Not at all. And I say relationships are tricky because I feel like a lot of the data that we have read through really focuses on the perpetrator being more powerful and the manipulatee being more powerless. And that I've never had.
Anyone to know the document name?
We said that already.
Yeah, no, she's right there.
I did that 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
We talked about the deep end.
Deep end.
I said that.
I just saw her.
If we say it again, we're going to have to tag Hulu on this. I tell you that.
Yeah, that's right.
But period. So no, I haven't been in a relationship, romantic relationship when it came to gaslighting. But what made me want to talk about it today is because I am reflecting on our 9 years to be soon here in New York City. And year 4, I was looking at Pedro, looking at me. We were looking at each other, looking outside our window. Like, are we crazy? What is going on here? Like, what are we doing in this city? Why are we here? And what is our purpose? What did we come here for? Like, we knew our mission. But still, I feel like we weren't accomplishing that mission. And so I felt like we were getting just the environment of New York City. And New York City can make you feel gaslit. You think you can do anything, and you come to New York, and they shut you down real quick.
But you remember too, I think we even prior experience at another church. When I mentioned the church we've been to, where I was part of the administration, ministerial team. Yeah. And they remember that particular church, they have young couple events in the church, and
look, that was the first instance. of
We
gaslighting.
didn't realize
That
that's
was
the term.
about 10 years ago,
Right.
and I would have never thought that
9 years ago.
that was
Approximately 10 years.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
Over 10 years ago. I never would have thought that would have been true. Pedro and I were in a group of people that we all had babies at the same time. We all had got maybe married around the same time, or we're just all married in general. And we all hung out, and I thought everything was good until I got put on notice that they were saying, well, why come you and Pedro didn't attend this event? How come you and Pedro didn't come here? Why weren't y'all at so-and-so's house? And I was like, I don't know, was that even a thing? And they were like, well, yeah, we were all there and you weren't. And so come to find out, we were excluded out of those soirees, so to speak. And I think this is a really generic reason. I'm sure there was more to do with it. But the reason came to me, I think that I can remember, it was because we didn't have a house.
I think
We weren't mortgage owners,
mortgage
and
owner.
we were going from house to house, and that was one, and that kind of hurt my feelings. But another instance I'll never forget, and I'm not bringing it up because I get so dog ass mad when I think about it.
Yes.
It's about a couple that we befriended at the church, and we literally became best friends. You know, we did everything together. Their daughters were our best friends. They ended up moving from Louisville to Cincinnati, and we would just track back and forth from Kentucky to Cincinnati, which isn't a long, is a long drive.
1 hour ride.
And long at all.
If
you're a friend,
yeah. But we were the only couple
that would frequently go visit them.
Frequently go visit this couple.
And when they had so-called friends in this same circle that never came, and so I felt felt that we were really good friends. And then one day, and I'm gonna do it because this is how I feel right now. We went. They had a baby at the hospital, and so me and Pedro showed up with gifts. We didn't call because you're at the hospital, and so you ain't going nowhere.
And we thought,
and so we were cool like that.
Cool,
so we showed up with the gifts. You know, they were like, "Oh, this is great. We appreciate it. Thank you." And then 2 days later, the husband calls Pedro, and is just stark and pitch mad.
That's what he said.
Going off on Pedro.
Yeah.
And what did he say?
When he called me, he was saying, listen, brother, it wasn't cool for you to come on up because my wife was in her gown and stuff like that. But when we got there, she was laying down with the baby. Right. So we didn't say anything. But what he said to me, man, he floored me.
Floored you?
Yeah, floored me to in my heart.
It broke
my heart.
Yeah.
It broke my heart, and I said, wow. I said, man.
What did he say? You gotta say that.
Well, he said, what you did was inappropriate. I don't know, like that. I said, inappropriate. I said, brother, my wife and I come to celebrate with you, and to bring a gift to show our appreciation, our love that we have for you. But this was the same guy who came to my house for that birthday, said to me he would not do X, Y, and Z, and he came to find out exactly what he said.
He would never do that to my friends. I'm such a loyal friend. And then he calls us out for being bad friends to come and visit him at the hospital. And so I don't know if that's gaslighting. Please let us know. But we were really second guessing ourselves, like, oh my God, are we bad friends? Was that inappropriate?
No, it is because, in other words,
what I'm saying is it wasn't inappropriate.
No. What he said is that what he's actually saying that you are not part of this group, so you're not significant.
And the thing was to me,
that's the problem.
And I could understand if he would have came with a better attitude. He was pissed off. He was cursing. He had an attitude, and he was mad about it. Like, we really offended him. When it could have just been like, oh man, it was a bad time. We appreciate y'all coming. Maybe better timing. But I think even in that instance, it felt weird when we got there because they were acting weird when we got there.
Right.
And so we should have took that cue. And from then, you know what? I was just like, we don't need friends like that. And ever since then, my trust has been really on high.
To get over it, to be quite honest with you. It took a long time for me.
Our feelings were hurt.
Yeah, our feelings were
because
devastated.
Pedro and I are really loyal friends. And so we'll do anything for our friends. And we get upset when you don't expect us to do things for you.
Right.
If we can. Right? And so I don't know. I think that's a major example of gaslighting, where maybe it started. Because we were tripping and we were questioning the validity of our ability to be loyal friends.
Right. And we're thinking, okay, did we do something?
We were really thinking, we
Because the way
called
it's-
other friends, right,
Right,
to ask
exactly.
about it, to give them the scenario.
Not only that, not with the other friends, but in the inner circle, we thought to feel left out and thought to feel insignificant. Because we thinking, did we do something?
And then after that, they really stopped inviting us.
They stopped inviting us,
To
right?
stuff.
Stop calling us. So we thinking, I was tripping. I said, you know,
What did we do?
did we do something wrong?
We didn't, and
know?
that was the crazy thing. We had no idea what it was. And the worst thing about gaslighting is people aren't going to tell you what the issue is because they're really protecting yourself. They're on defensive mode, right? So that's what that's my first instance of gaslighting.
And then we'll transition in another.
We'll get into that one as we move forward because
let's
we
move
can stay
on.
there all day. But go ahead. Let's talk a little bit about what do you have here?
These are just
No, go up here. We're gonna give a few examples. We gave you some of our personal examples of what we think gaslighting is, but Pedro's gonna give some examples of what gaslighting looks like if you are on the other side of that.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
Well, one of the examples we got is that lying about denying something and refusing to admit the lie, even when you show them the proof. That's a big one right there.
Here it is. It's on my phone. It's
Right.
I see you sitting with her. You know, I see this text message,
Right.
and they're like Shaggy.
Right, and deny say you're
wasn't
being
me.
delusional,
What's me?
you're being oversensitive, right?
Yeah, that's the big one.
You know, and number two is that insisting that an event or behavior you witnessed never happened and you are remembering it wrong.
Remembering it the wrong way.
The wrong way.
Right?
So the next one is
What's that word? Like, no, that was so long ago. You must have, that wasn't her. You tripping.
I didn't say that.
Am I tripping?
Right.
Right.
You misinterpreting that. So these are right.
You putting words in my mouth.
Putting words in my mouth.
That's a good one. People say, right?
That's a good one, right? That's not what I meant.
Yeah.
You putting words in my mouth. Number three is that spreading rumors and gossip about you, or telling you that other people are gossiping about you. In a word, what it's simply saying that they said, well, they're not this person that gossip about you, but they're the one who really gossiping about you. But they project that image on the next person.
Wait, can I give an example?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, we church folks be talking, right? And so I want to give an example because this makes me think about the time I was at church and a church leader was spreading rumors about me. She was in the same mess as me, and she was making it look like it was my fault. We got into a little tete-a-tete, and she started to tell the rest of the group of members of the church that it was my fault, and I was the main agitator. When in fact, she was. And then so I go to church the next couple of Sundays, and everybody's looking at me crazy. All the senior saints looking at me. Like, look at this, she just got here. Look at this troublemaker. And so they're believing what she said. And I couldn't defend myself because when we had a meeting of the minds with our pastor, he said, don't tell nobody about it because we don't want the church to look bad. But then she done went and told everybody everything anyway.
Right.
And so I was left defenseless to defend myself. And the rumors were out there about me that I was a bad person. And I couldn't do anything about it because I had to be quiet.
Right, because the person portrayed that you have done something. And that's not the case. And the fourth one is that hurtful. But the thing about it that there's grace.
Yeah.
And there's redemption.
Oh, let's talk about that later.
Well, we can talk about that later. Changing the subject or refusing to listen when confronted about a lie or other gaslighting behavior. In other words,
change the subject,
people
right?
To change the subject, right?
Yeah.
And especially when they know that you are telling the truth.
They quick to say, "Oh, I heard a baby crying."
Yeah.
Oh, something happened
so they come
over
up with
here.
Different kind of scenarios.
You must be talking about the other sorority or fraternity.
Come up with different kind of scenario just to avoid confronting the real issue, right? And then lastly is that telling you that you are overreacting when you call them.
Oh, that's a big one.
You're too emotional.
And I think that happens not only in romantic relationships, but family gaslighting, work gaslighting, organizational gaslighting. If I'm telling you my experience and I feel a certain way, what I feel is what I feel. You can't negate that. And so then to tell me that I'm overreacting right? The biggest thing that I hate, and I think we definitely do it to each other, when we're both kind of riled up and we're about to argue about something, I'd be like, calm down, you're doing too much. Oh, you always tell me,
That's our
relax.
favorite word.
You
That's
like,
exactly.
relax.
No, you're doing too much.
Tell me to relax.
That's my favorite word. Relax, my friend. Relax.
That just gets me even more amped up to start something.
And she tells me,
my feelings are my feelings.
But it's the same thing with mine. You said
I tell you to calm down.
Calm down.
You need to just go ahead and calm down.
Right. So you kind of
we both overlooking
our feelings.
We do, yeah.
And we do that, not realizing that we're gaslighting each other.
Yeah.
Right? True. But it's when we want to not acknowledge each other's reality.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. That's true.
All
right.
So let's talk about now.
What we'll talk about
what is spiritual.
Well, how do you let's jump into that.
Okay.
So let's
before we get to the spiritual, how do you respond in handling the difficulty when it comes to gaslighting?
How do you respond? What about you guys? Has anyone been in an instance where you've been a part of a gaslighting event?
You can write.
Respond.
You can write something that we can.
Leave something in the discussion for later that we can chew on. But how do you respond? It'll show up right here. Yeah. How do you respond to gaslighting? And sometimes the thing is, like I told Pedro, you have to ask yourself, tripping? Because I think I was just gaslit. As we were sitting here reading the article on the news, I had to sit back and say, yo, Pedro, we've been in New York 9 years, and I think we've been gaslit. That gas been turned on so high, scorched.
Yeah.
Right?
But here's the thing about it, though. Sometimes, how can I say this here? You just don't want to accept the reality in your face.
Yeah.
You think to yourself, no.
That person would never do that. That group would never do that.
That group would never do that. Exactly.
I've known them so long.
Right. So you thinking
it couldn't be. So you give them grace, right? You give them
I always say
you automatically give them an out.
Right. I always said, when I meet with people or counsel with people, and I said, I always give people the benefit
of the doubt. Yeah.
Right. And until later, if they distrust you, I heard it said this. I know if this is going to be. I remember this. This was a female preacher that preached at TDJ church one time, and she was talking about also we can see that in domestic violence too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
She said it this way: if you hit me, it's a mistake. If you hit me twice, it becomes a habit.
Like physically?
Yeah.
Okay.
And mental domestic violence. The husband beating the wife, person, whatever it is. So if you hit me, you make a mistake. Number two, if you hit me again, it becomes a habit. And if you hit me the third time, then it becomes a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's a classic example of what gaslighting is.
Well, because it goes two ways though.
Yeah.
I'm like you asked me if I ever been gaslit. No, because I'm not gonna let it. I don't know if I've recognized it, but I'm not gonna let it happen. Like if we in the fight and you go, and I get hit, I'm not about to be like, let me make you some chicken.
Right.
Look like. But then I'm gonna do that. Point it. I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying I'm smart enough to leave the situation. Some people, I ain't shaking you or nothing like that. I ain't trying to.
I used to be coming to church with black eye.
I ain't trying to buff you up. I'm just
gaslight.
You got more than gaslight. You got more than gaslit, right?
Gaslit,
right? Lit. That's catch a fire right there.
Catch a fire.
But you have to know the signs, right? And you have to know how to respond. So let's talk a little bit about how to respond if that is the thing, and then we'll jump into the organizational aspect of spiritual gaslighting. Right. Organizational aspect, which is the spiritual gaslighting part of it,
right? Because
which is why we're here.
Why we're here. Now, number one, this is one of the ways that you handle gaslighting, right? Now, make sure it is actually gaslighting, right? No, but here's the problem: if you don't know what gaslighting is,
then
you're not able to recognize
general abuse,
right,
or a toxic relationship.
But remember, right, the classic definition of what gaslighting is manipulation and create a delusional reality
For the other
for the
person's
other
own
person to have
advantage.
advantage over you. So if you see it, then you can recognize it. Right. Number two, take some space from the situation. That is true because you know why? As my wife was saying about a couple in Louisville, Kentucky, it took that transition to come here to New York to live for me to finally
Oh,
dealt with that
I was done
situation.
with that way before we
Now
left
you were
Kentucky.
done with it,
I'm a
but
queen
I
of a
wasn't.
cutoff.
Yeah, I wasn't because all the time.
Well, because that was a nurtured, long-term, genuine, loyal relationship.
But remember, like I said, you don't want to give the perpetrator to dismantle you,
And you don't want to give them power
over
like
you.
that, right?
And I'll be honest with you guys, I thought I did something wrong in the relationship.
We both did.
And I mean, you were over it.
Oh.
You were over it, but I wasn't.
You were still.
You can attest to that.
You were still processing.
I was still processing.
How did I lose that friend?
Right. What did I did wrong? And it took me that transition to say one day, to say, you know what, in 2016, I think I'm done.
And that was like 4 years after.
That's 4 years after. So, you can see the impact it had on me personally, right? So, take some space from the situation.
I've been there. I've lost a friend for decades, and we rekindled. And then again, I'm still thinking to myself, what did I do wrong? Because it still doesn't feel right. And no matter what I do, I still feel like I'm walking on eggshells because there's always a complaint about something. I'm never doing it quite right. But friendships don't come with instruction manuals. And if you want me to, just let me know so I can be better. But I don't like the passive aggressiveness of it. And so I just have to let that go.
And the other thing about it, your health, your mental health is so
important. I'd rather have my mental health. I'd
rather remove myself from that person who I thought was my friend, but really is not your friend. And trust me, I was telling my daughter this: friends come and go, people come and go in your life, right? But it's your mental state. Yeah, that's important. Number two, collect evidence.
Thank you, You're amazing.
Collect evidence. If somebody says something to you,
CSI, what kind of evidence you collect?
No, you want the evidence you want to collect is when somebody says something that as in psychology, your instinct is something wrong. What the person said, you're not too sure.
Yeah,
you want to go out and do the research yourself.
That's even
find out what is being said is true or not.
That's even if there is evidence to collect. Like with the issue with our friends, there was no evidence. It was just out of nowhere.
No, the evidence I discovered was that
they weren't invited us.
Right, they weren't invited us, right? And we found out, as my wife said,
right.
All of them purchased a home except us, right? Because the other friend that we saw. I'm saying.
I'm gonna get all that space.
You gotta know the evidence. Right.
Taking away too much time
about the behavior, right?
Say if you see something like in New York
and confront it.
If you see something,
say something. Right.
Next.
Say something. All right, I'll leave that alone. Remain confident in your version of the event. Never let the other person remove you from your reality.
Don't let them think you're crazy.
Let them think you're crazy.
Don't let them think you're true.
Right. Don't let them go up and flipping the switch to the light and think that you're psychologically crazy. Right. Stick to it. If you know for sure, be confident about it.
Trust your gut.
All right. Focus on self-care. I think I said self-care.
Take care of your mental.
Your mental, it's critical, man.
And it's hard. I know a lot of people, especially here in New York City, they work. It's like they're on a hamster wheel, and they are unable to have self-care because they have to continue to work, or they want to do other things, but they're stuck in the job because it pays the bills. They can't really focus on what their passions are, or where the money, they're only where the money resides, right? We ain't trying to be where the money resides. We want to be where our passions and our self-care lies, right? And we can't do that because we lack focus on self-care. And a lot of people get sick. They work so hard and they lack self-care.
Even some preachers get gaslight. They didn't even know that they get gaslight.
Oh,
because
not
because self-care, right? Because they believe that the pastor should do this. Busy.
Trip.
People say, that's your
conference.
But
counseling,
that
team services,
right? Now,
It's not. Just
it's
because
not.
you look busy doesn't mean you busy.
Right, exactly. And self-care is very important.
You busy, but you're not effective.
Right. The other one is that involve others.
Mm-hmm.
Find people who you trust
To get
to
to
help
talk
you
about it,
to
right?
talk about it. Right. Someone. And by the way, lack of trust is one of the number one thing in the church today.
Oh, we're gonna get there.
And we're gonna talk about why that
We
is.
got a little time for that. We're
But
gonna
lack of trust. Okay. Seek professional support.
mm-hmm.
Guys, it's okay to seek a psychologist. If you're going through some situation, I'll seek your pastor who trained in psychology, and seek their help. Seek their guidance and their wisdom of helping you overcome it. Right. That's the.
And I would say would involve others. When we were talking about our situation here in New York, we had a particular friend or family that we go to really for counsel, and we bounce things off of. So especially me when I'm like in a funk and I have to reach out to say, no, I'm not crazy. This and this and this happened. Can you shed some light on this? Is this normal? Should I feel this way? And once again, am I tripping? Right? And so involve others, because if you aren't speaking it out loud, you're really denying it within yourself that the situation never happened. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's jump into really what we've been alluding to all the time. All this happens in relationships. All this happens in friendships. All this happens in workplaces. All this happens in organizations. We said it. We talked about it in the hospitals. Medical gaslighting. Let's really look into, does it happen in the church? Can pastors gaslight their congregation members? Can members gaslight other members? What the visitors hollering about, right? And so let's talk about that.
We call that spiritual manipulation.
Gaslighting equals spiritual manipulation. You want to talk a little bit about what spiritual gaslighting is?
So let's talk about what is spiritual gaslighting. I think I like to say spiritual gaslighting is when someone invalidates a personal experience by taking scripture, usually out of context, and applying it to their hardship, right?
Yeah.
In other words, they take the scripture out of context and apply it in the person's situation, but it has nothing to do with the personal situation.
When we say out of context, they're only given a snippet of the scripture,
right,
or a phrase in Jesus wept, so you can cry too. They're not given the passages before or the passages after to really talk about why that scripture is such, right? An example that we had is when people say, and if you've listened to our series, we did a whole 3-part series on suffering with a purpose, and I really talked about my struggle with just suffering and depression and different things like that. And one of the big issues that popped up was I didn't want to share what was happening with me to church members. One, because I didn't trust that it would get any place, because I just said they were telling stories on me. And I felt if I shared that I'm a pastor's wife and I'm going through things and I'm depressed.
Oh, that's a big one right there.
Yes. I feel like less of a Christian. And so most people are thinking, well, how does that even work? You got the hookup right there. And so people will take those type of references or instances, and one of the main ones was Jeremiah 9:11. I'll have you read that one. Say that. I know you know it by heart. If someone says, I'm not feeling well, I'm having depression, something's happening, I don't know how to cope, and then the first thing a member would say, or a church mentor would say, well, Jeremiah 29:11 says,
right now,
come on.
God knows the future.
God knows your future, and He has a plan for your
future. Right.
Things for hope.
So say right here, it said, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plan to prosper you, not to harm you, and plan to give you hope and a future. And sometimes people will take that scripture sometimes and just misplaces in
Mhm.
some wrongful situation.
It's really, it really, and I agree. God does have all that, but my question is, I'm here on the planet today, and I'm suffering. And how does that apply to what I'm going through? My cable about to get cut off. How does that apply to my what we got anyway? Optimum. It ain't getting cut off, but I'm
But
just
even
saying.
with the context
But
here,
is
Joe,
they take that and minimize, they use the
right,
scriptures and they minimize your circumstance and
right.
your feelings, and
They're
they
not
throw
really
scriptures at it.
addressing your feelings,
Right.
what is
They just put
happening.
the scripture
Right. They
for
just put a
speed.
band-aid, a spiritual band-aid over it, but they're
Yeah.
not really addressing the root cause of what is going on,
Yeah.
right? So when we do stuff like that, we are harming the people more.
Mm-hmm.
And when we leave them unprotected, they just walk away from God. It's, oh, this is
Yeah.
not for me. Church life is not for me. I've tried this, I've done this, but they not really address my
And
problem, my
it
situation I'm
causes
going
them to
through.
question their Christianity.
Right.
Like, am I doing this right? Everyone else looks good.
And then you say, I'm really not spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not strong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really. And then you start really questioning your salvation,
Because
who you are.
what happens is when you apply spiritual gaslighting to people, it creates a community that is lacking in empathy.
Prime example, I went to a funeral yesterday, and one of the senior lady, was driving back with me, and she was sharing an experience. And because I've said when I went up there to give the benediction, one other reason why my wife is not here, my wife is still dealing with the grief of her mom passing away, and my wife do not love to come to the funeral. Right.
Let's go to funerals, though.
The point is that she said to me in the car, there was a lady.
You said that at the
I can't mention the name, but we're driving back home.
No, I'm saying you said that about me at the funeral?
No, I was saying my wife is not able to come.
I'm saying you said that about me at the funeral?
No, not in detail like that.
Oh.
Not in detail like that. I said that my daughter's sick and my wife's not able to be there.
But the real reason is part of, I was sick and I'm not sharing germs, but I can't do funerals.
No, she can't do funeral because until when she reached
I'm not ready.
Right? Until she reached that point. But my point is I've brought that up was the fact that the individual in the car said to me, Pastor Pedro, I remember a situation way back then when people said to a young lady whose mom passed away, get over it. And I said to her, probably because at that time they didn't know what to say. They probably think that by saying that was the right thing. Yeah. And not realizing that you really had more hurt to the person feeling.
I had dinner with one of my good friends from IU for a couple Friday or so back, and we were sharing our experiences with losses of our mothers, and we were just really talking about the things that people say to you to help you get over, but are really insensitive. And one of the things she said that someone told her, and I've heard someone tell me this, and I probably told other people this, and it clicked. She said, people say, everything is oh my God, I had it when you were talking about it. Her mom had passed, and they said, this too shall pass. You'll get over this soon.
Right. This too shall
everything happens for a reason. It won't happen. Trouble won't last always. Things like that. And she was like, it's been 4 years. I'm still hurting. So how dare you tell me just to get over it, right? And it's insensitive. But things like that in church create a lack of a community, lacking empathy, lacking real love, and lacking belongingness. Because in my notes, what happens, a result of spiritual gaslighting, it can lead to trauma. It can lead to trauma. If people are telling you that what you're doing isn't wrong, or that you feel like you're less of a Christian because you're going through hardships and you don't know how to handle it, and you don't want to share, or if you do share, people minimize your feelings, it can create trauma, which leads to church hurt, right? And church hurt leads to doubting your faith, right?
Right.
Which later leads you to pull away, as people say, from organized religion. I believe in Christ, so I don't believe in organized religion.
People say, I'm more spiritual.
Yeah. And then that leads to mistrust.
That's mistrust.
Right.
Most people I talk to now, young folks, young couple, they say, "Oh, I'm spiritual."
Yeah, I don't go to church.
I don't go to church. So that's the thing about it. But we're not really addressing what is really going on in the person's life.
And it could have been an instance of gas, because people just don't automatically wake up and say, I don't go to church, unless they never had anybody in their family go to church.
Right.
But if you're black,
Right.
I'm just saying it from my experience.
Right. But
you'd have went to somebody's church.
But if you're
It's
not
there.
really addressing the issue,
But there's unresolved trauma.
Right, it leads up to that.
Mhm.
It leads up to that. And by the way, anyway, I'm gonna leave that right.
Yeah, we got to start wrapping up.
So we're talking about now. We also experienced that in several years ago, where people would say that if you don't support certain following certain paths, you're not a Christian. Support any political leaders, you're not a Christian. And sometimes that can lead a young believer, in that middle, begin to question him or herself. I said, wow.
That happened. You're talking. I'm definitely thinking examples. If you look at Instagram, and you see all these preachers out here are just a hot mess. The one that comes to my mind is a preacher. If you guys watched him, he was on Instagram, and he had his mic, and he had this nice little Gucci suit, and he was like, he was mad at the congregation for not tithing, not giving enough of their money. And he was like, I'm not worth y'all McDonald's money. I'm not worth y'all Red Lobster money. I can't get my Gucci. I can't get my Fendi. And he wants them to give up their hard-earned money to support his habit, and to think the only way to get to God is by paying into him, when he's the one that's actually benefiting.
Right. When you say and that's the thing. When people say honor your pastor, sometimes they take that scripture.
That's another one.
And misrepresent it.
And they give you everything.
And they make you feel guilty.
Think about homeboy that got robbed here in Brooklyn. The pastor bishop that got robbed online. He ended up going to in jail. Didn't the feds come and get him?
Yeah.
We're still in the ladies' money.
We don't want to leave that alone.
That's something totally different. But the point was, they were giving everything to him to fund his lifestyle, and they thought the best way to get closer to God was to give to him. Right. And he was gaslighting them, making them think that was so.
And then one more thing before we wrap it up here. Something is being said in church, even by the pastor or by the preacher. You know that what him or her said is not true. But when you kind of go to them and talk to them, they trying to say, no. This is what they're really saying. And they, even her who approached a particular preacher might begin to believe what God is really saying to them. Yeah. But because that person is in that position, his or her position kind of override what you really feel. Yeah. And sometimes that can lead to spiritual gaslighting, where the pastor begin to manipulate what really God was really saying. But you confront the preacher about it, but they try not to be honest.
Yeah. When I was also looking, and as I'm trying to just figure out our last steps, when you think about gaslighting in churches, it goes two ways. It is apparent in the church systems, how the church operates, the infrastructure, and it's apparent in church leadership. We've talked about the church leadership, about preachers thinking they're the only way to get to God is to honoring them. Go to that last email I sent you so we can end off on the final thought. But I'm also thinking about the church infrastructure. Even think about work. You know how a lot of businesses are really focused and leaned in on DEI, diversity, inclusion. And then they put all this money towards it. And then they hire all these people. But then who are still the main leaders? Who are still the CEOs at the top? Not the people that the initiative is for, right? And it's the same thing with church systems. Let's create new programs. Let's create new ministries to get to our youth. And then we finally, fortunately get the youth. And then the youth have nothing to do. They're just sitting there. They're not a part of the ministry. They're not a part of the church. They just did it to increase numbers, right? Also, I'm thinking about one of the reasons I really had a bone to pick was an issue we had with a ministry. We tried to create a ministry that was pretty successful. And the thing was, the church wanted the ministry. We gave them the ministry. We created the framework, and it went well. But it was like hell trying to get it off the ground. We had to go through him, her, they, he. It was a hierarchy, and it was overly micromanaged. And it got to the point where our creativity was stifled, and we couldn't really do what we wanted to do because there were so many hoops to go through. And so we shut it down. And then now people are like, hey, y'all should bring that back. Y'all should go ahead and do that again. No, we won't.
But and that's one of the things.
Not on your terms, because when I try to give you something, you want to take over. You want to micromanage it. And so that's ingrained in the systems. Everybody has to have their hand in it. And I understand checks and balances, but it's not fair if you want something and then you want to run it. So you do it, right?
Oh, man, I think micromanagement may be part of gaslighting. But you're saying that
It's part of organizational gaslighting.
Yeah, because what you're saying, you can't do it without my presence being
right. I have to prove it. I have to do it.
But here's the key, though. We have to give people the leadership, the opportunity to express their leadership, that they are capable of doing it. Because when we do that, we're saying that we're saying to that person, you're not really capable of really carrying it out. But listen, as the saying goes, that
you have to let
the way that
people
we grow
do it
is when we make mistakes, learn from those mistakes.
And you can't. You have to take a risk.
You have to take a risk.
And as a leader, you have to be behind those people and take the brunt of it, right? One more thing, because I got a million of these. That's probably why I showed up. In one particular instance, and I want to go over this gaslighting in the workplace, just a couple signs, and then we'll be done in the final thought. I helped create an infrastructure in a particular business to create their core social media, and it was done, but it wasn't active. And I started working on that, added a couple things, and I was able to upload things, scriptures, word of the days, pictures, and things like that. Then it got a little bit too difficult. Well, you can't put so-and-so's picture up there without their consent. Well, how long is that going to take? Okay, well, you can't put that scripture up there because it is contradicting on what we use this version of the Bible, not that version of the Bible. So you can't put that online. Okay, that's difficult. And then it came to, well, you're posting things and other people are replying. We don't want them to be replying to the post. We don't want to have constant interaction. And it just got really difficult. And then all of a sudden a committee got formed in order to figure out how to operate the social media. And it's just like, what is this? And then eventually the committee got formed, and in the committee, someone was assigned to be over the committee. And then later that person was the committee administrator to do the social media, and I was pushed out. So I was the creator of it, and yet and still I wasn't even able to operate it. And now look, I got a lot of grievances, but you know what? They're life lessons to be learned, and thank God that we have went through those, because that only sets us up and prepares us for what comes in the future, And so we're able to recognize that, but it won't happen again. That's all I got to say. But I want to give a couple examples with Pedro. Some examples of organizational gaslighting, because that's really what we're looking at. Just do those without really, silently sabotaging. I just talked about that. All right. I'm going to let you do the work. I'm going to let you get all the information, but then I'm going to take forever to approve it. I'm going to take forever for the process to get approved, even though it needs to be done like yesterday. And so that prevents you from doing your job better. And then you're thinking to yourself, isn't that my job? Or why is it so difficult?
And the other one is that omitted essential information. Sometimes we think that the boss thinks that we can read him or her mind. And if you don't really say it, how you expect me to know if you really don't share the information? All right, so that's one area where it can lead to situations.
Yes.
I tell people this: I can't read your mind.
I don't know what you expect of me unless you tell me.
Unless you tell me,
right?
Next one is extreme defensiveness.
Yeah.
The person becomes very defensive, and I have to admit, sometimes I can. When my wife looked at me, I said it. I mean, you have to acknowledge it. Now you have to acknowledge it.
Your character is being attacked. Right. You want to respond.
Right.
You feel defensive.
I don't feel defensive. But what I'll do, I always say this though: when I become very defensive, I will go back and evaluate what the person said to me, and after I admit it, that's true.
Yeah.
I probably need to change this way and that way.
Yeah.
So,
but a gaslighter won't. They're extremely defensive. They're extremely angry about it, and they turn it onto you and not them.
Right. Inauthentic helpfulness. This is when the gaslighting employee will pretend to help out their peers, although their attempts are manipulative That is so true.
That's that committee that was formed. Why we got a whole committee about what to post up, and ain't none of these people on social
I
media?
mean, there's nothing wrong with having a committee, but sometimes you have to give people the opportunity to lead.
It was too much.
But you do have cases where people who said, they pretending to help you, but literally they're trying to undermine you.
They're taking back what you said and sending it to other people
Not
to really
taking
get
back,
to
but
really share the
undermine your
information.
work. They're trying to
Yeah.
undermine your work, right? And hypocrisy. Oh my God, the Bible talk about this so much. It's
Big one. Yeah.
Hypocrisy. Gaslighting. Bosses may be overly strict on certain policy when it comes to their employee, only to disregard those rules themselves. In other words,
What's an
the
example
rule
of that?
does not apply to them.
The biggest example they gave is a leader always complaining about other people being late, and then they show up late habitually.
Listen, the biggest one we can see right now is in the political world.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're at a affluent position that they can do whatever they want to do
because they have money.
They have money and they have high friends and high quotes, so they know that they can get away with it. So it may not apply to me, but it applies to the common people.
Yeah.
Now think about it. Most of the stuff that common people do get locked up for. And when those are in high position do the same thing,
they throw money at it.
They don't get no consequence. They got a slap on the wrist and then that's it, right? So the hypocrisy of that. And Jesus addressed it in the gospel, right? He said, we must not be that way. We must be consistent all the time. Right? We can't say one thing and do the opposite. We must be consistent.
So we're gonna, boy, that was a lot. And the gaslighting, as we did our research, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of layers.
It's a lot there.
It's a lot of layers, and we've only really tipped scratched the surface.
Scratch the surface.
Of it. But more to come. We're looking. How do you think that was? What do you have? Any insights on that? Let us know your feelings about it. But definitely more to come on it. And I think gaslighting is definitely a symptom of church hurt. And that's what we're going to be talking about our next series coming up this week, helping unpack recognizable traumas. I mean, look, we're here. Church folks be talking CFBT, okay? And one of the things that we want to focus is on, baby, show your shirt. What we talking about?
Real people, real life, real people, real relationships.
Real people, real experiences.
Real experience, real people, real relationships.
Let them to the bottom of it, honey, bunny. Real people, real experiences, real relationships. Yeah. And y'all people, got it right
real
there.
Experience, real relationship.
And that's what we're focusing on. So we hope that for those who did tune in, we thank you for showing up. We're looking forward to some more live platforms in 2023, more collaborations. But we do want to leave you with a thought for gaslighting to chew on before we leave. Want to give that final thought? I thought that was quite profound.
If someone is chronically gaslighting you, it is normal to feel frustrated, confused, hurt, and guilty. It is important to remind yourself that their actions are not your fault. Knowing how gaslighting works and being mindful of the common gaslighting examples can help you break free from this form of abuse.
And it's just like the Mya Angelou quote said.
Right.
I won't be reduced to this mess.
Right. You could change me, but I'm not allowed the situation to reduce me. Right? Yep. So this platform is not so much trying to put anybody down. It's just to bring awareness. Right?
Yes.
It's to bring awareness if you're in leadership. It's supposed to bring awareness because there's things
if you're in followership.
Right. There are things I myself I've discovered through this gaslighting concept. To be quite honest with you. So it's more so to bring awareness to your position as a leader. I'm telling you.
And to hold you accountable. Even hold ourselves accountable as friends, as employees.
In marriages, in relationships.
Spouses.
Right.
And speak up about it. So listen to the signs, recognize the signs, know the consequences of that, and talk to someone about it. Don't be afraid to speak up about it, because you never know who you can help out of those situations. All right. So from Church Folks Be Talking, we want to thank you guys for hanging out with us and listening in, and your comments and your shares. So share it, like it, subscribe. We're on what platforms, babe?
We're on iHeartRadio,
iHeartRadio now.
Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We have our YouTube channel.
Yep.
We have IG.
And we're on IG. Look,
and then
number 5. 5 is the
and you can
five is
download
the number.
Cashbox and just come
Yeah,
on
if you do something called Castbox, it's on there.
You can any platform, iPad, podcast platform.
Who knew that?
You can type your name in and we pop right up.
Look, just Google Church Folks Be Talking, and if you see somebody besides us, you better let us know. 'Cause they tripping.